Hey, it's your old buddy Zach here, back once again after a week off for the latest edition of 4th and 4, the Week 16 edition of the NFL pregame show, part of the Belly Up Sports pregame lineup. Zach is sorry, but of course we got our two of my buddies, of course, from Hilo Sports in as well, Kelcey and DJ here for another edition. Guys, I'm sorry I wasn't there last week. Just sometimes things just really don't line up, and I don't expect my weekends to be packed to the brim. But somehow, some way it did. I apologize for leaving you on the island, but thanks for forgiving me. I'm back. I'm ready to go.
You know, Zach, you're a busy guy. You're a hot commodity. We get it. You got places to be, people to see, things to do. We get it. We understand. No need to apologize. So being Zach is not easy. It's a 24/7 job. So we understand. We'll forgive you this time. Don't make it a habit now.
Don't let him off this easy. No, this is blasphemy. Blasphemy, Zach.
He gets one. If he pulls it again, though, then we drop Thor's hammer on him if he does it again.
Fair enough. Okay, touche.
The bar is set really low, but he's getting real close to it now. He's creeping on.
The good cop, bad cop
I don't know if you
here
can see
is
it.
very present.
That is your punishment.
Attack you.
That is your punishment, Zach.
This is why he's here.
Hey, you know what? If that thing comes here like small soldiers and like attacks me, I will be frightened. Probably to where I will leave Indianapolis. I'll go somewhere in the country. You won't know where I'm at. We'll just do the show that way. Anonymous,
Cleveland, because there's no better way to hide than to stay close.
Yes, obviously. We'll just go over to where you're at, and I just won't tell you where I'm at all. And I'll turn my GPS off. Anyway, guys, welcome into this Week 16 edition of 4th and 4. We'll kick things off here. As always, we got 4 different segments, 4 quarters for those that somehow have not tuned in yet, or if you're new to the show, I apologize for sounding rude. I'm just telling you that if you haven't tuned in yet, that's how the show goes. Quarter number 1, all the big headlines from the week is how we cover this. We're going to talk about many things that have gone on. Mostly the Rona seems to be the big news in the kickoff segment of 4th and 4. There are a few other nuggets that have come up. One today out of at least New Rutherford there with the Giants. But let's touch on the COVID scenario. I know that Omicron is the big word of the day, or really word of the several months now in terms of winter season. It's finally hitting the sports world like a storm. The NFL is no exception. And guys, this week we have plenty of people that will be sitting out just because, well, they got infected with either a new variant or the infection rates are spreading around. I mean, heck, DJ, your Colts got hit pretty hard with the interior line for a lot of it too.
At some point, I understand, like we and Kelcey were talking about it. Vaccination is your choice. Fully understand that, but it's like, damn, is it really that important where you're going to miss 2 games now without doing it? I mean, you mentioned Darius Leonard, all-pro linebacker, potential defense player of the year. Well, that's out the window now. You're not going to get defense player of the year missing these 2 games unless you have 4 picks in the last game or something like that. Quentin Nelson, all-pro guard, he's out, and there's plenty of others. Then you look at other players missing. For the Ravens, Lamar's out with an injury. Tyler Huntley, your backup, is now with COVID. I don't know if I think it's just the 1 game, but now you're down to Josh Johnson playing quarterback. Like, just looking down the list, the way it's affecting down the playoff season, I still think the NFL should have taken a week off. Like the NHL's taking a mid-season break. The NBA, they need to take a break as well, too. I think they're just trying to survive till All-Star break. Taking a week would not have hurt anything as well, too, just to figure things out. To have a bye week after Thanksgiving, because you had to have known this was going to happen down the stretch, and you were just hoping to mitigate the damage. So I still think this could have been avoided with a Thanksgiving bye week, and I think kind of missed the ball a little bit as well. And it's going to come down to who navigate. DeForest Buckner said it best after last night's game. The team who wins the Super Bowl is going to be the one that navigates the pandemic. Not necessarily the best team, maybe not even the healthiest, but whoever manages to navigate this mess the best.
That's so true.
Yeah,
and Kelcey, you seem pretty prepared for it right now, too. You're ready to navigate.
It's simple. Like, you're giving team worn hoodies. Just pull it up over your nose. Hey, guess what? A built-in mask. Look. Oh, my gosh. You could just avoid everything by wearing your mask if you're not vaccinated.
Looking at you, Jalen Ramsey. He does that the best. You can at least
avoid a good percentage of it by wearing your mask. And it's simple things. I do think the NFL obviously has been kind of just, I think everybody got comfortable and this came in and everybody was like, it'll be whatever. This is no big deal. And here we are with, 75 positive cases last week and then 150 by the middle of the week that were positive cases without showing anything. And like, it's one of those situations where everybody got too comfortable and everybody kind of was like, oh, it'll be okay, like type of situation. And I don't know. It sucks. Let's be completely fair about it. It's not the best situation. It was not fun watching the Colts last night with 3 backup linemen, and then it ended up being 4 and 5 at one point in time in the game.
Yeah.
Like literally with 2 active offensive linemen left on the sideline at one point in time. That was not fun or ideal for anybody. But the difference between this game versus the Browns one that got moved, obviously unvaccinated players with the outbreak versus vaccinated players. So it's just a situation where we just got too lax. Everybody in the NFL, everybody kind of surrounding it, kind of got a little too lax, and they didn't prepare like they should have. And that's exactly right though. The DeForest Buckner commentary, like who navigates this best? Who's going to be the team that is most prepared to deal with this going forward? Is going to be the team it's going to work out best for. And that's not just talking their starters and staying healthy. That's talking how many backups are they going to end up, that are going to be ready? How many, like Ian Book in New Orleans today, is he going to be ready in this situation? And then let's say Ian Book gets COVID. What do the Saints do there? Who do they turn to then in that situation with no other quarterback on the roster? Like, obviously you might have Simeon, but he might not be healthy. And, is he still in protocol? And that's always going to be a concept of this that's going to have to play part going forward too.
Yeah, I mean, it's already hit us hard enough with terms of like we're just talking the AFC North competition right now. I mean, we probably can imagine how Browns fans are feeling knowing that you've lost 2 close contests. One of those was a good effort by Nick Mullins, but you wonder how that game turns out with Baker Mayfield in there. With such a close contest having to come down to a final miracle drive from Derek Carr and company. Yesterday Mayfield was in, so of course it's a little different, but I digress. Key players being out during a playoff race is not helpful whatsoever. And it deters anything in terms of trying to get, I think, what could be a right outcome. And also, I think it hurts the competition a bit. The NFLPA mentioned at least during its talks with the NFL about this issue, that competition and the integrity, it's being thrown around a lot with the Omicron variant or whatever version of COVID that is having players sit on the sidelines, that the integrity of the game, the high tier quality of the game that so many NFL fans expect does get affected when you have to put in players that aren't your key guys. I mean, Tyler Huntley has been a story mainly for how well he's played and how he has gotten to this point where bouncing around practice squads and finally getting his chance to play. And we don't get to see him continue that story. Now, Joe Johnson is his own, but I digress. We miss out on that, and we miss out on what could be an even better playoff matchup that way too. I hate to see that, especially in the later portion of the season when we should be getting these prime time matchups that we want to see and put the best of the best out there.
Absolutely as well too. And we do have a comment from Jason Cooper, the commissioner of TSS Fantasy, asking about the Christmas jacket. And you know what, Jason, I didn't wear the Christmas jacket today, but I did wear a shirt I got for Christmas. So, I kind of canceled it out that way too. A new Christmas shirt, freshly broken, literally just cut the tag off right before the show. So I had 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But the Christmas jacket, maybe I'll bring her out for next Christmas. It even lights up for those who haven't seen it.
DJ's trying to make us feel like bums right now, Zach. That's all it is.
Honestly, let me frank. I got this shirt on. I got Zubas on currently just because I'm sitting here just doing the show. It's 10 o'clock on a Saturday. I am usually tired from the whole week.
You're clearly tired because it's 10 o'clock on a Sunday, not a Saturday. So you're a lot more tired than you're letting on.
Right.
Look, let's be honest. I almost forgot. Like I literally set an alarm subconsciously last night. It's built into my Google calendars at this point in time. And if my alarm didn't go off this morning, I probably was like, wake up at like 11 o'clock just because I didn't, last night was a lot of fun doing the Colts game. And you're just like, oh my God, it just happened. And then you're just like, wait, crap. I should have probably tried to sleep a little bit more.
Absolutely. And we kind of talked about the COVID situation, how it's affected teams. Well, the Browns got most of their players back yesterday, minus J.C. Treader, the center, and they're obviously still missing the tackles from injury and stuff. But you did get a handful of players back, including Wyatt Teller, among others. What did you guys think about the Browns' effort against the Packers? Well, early on, they were basically getting slapped across the field, but it ended up being a 2-point game with a chance to win. What were your guys' thoughts on that? Zach, I'm going to bounce it to you on first on this one because me and Kelcey have some strong words.
Man, this one hurts because you always Green Bay looked like this juggernaut, even though with Aaron Rodgers' fractured toe and some of the injuries that they've dealt with all year, this matchup coming in, I thought was going to be one-sided to a degree. And surprisingly, Cleveland kept into it. They kept tough. Baker Mayfield, unfortunately, they relied a little too much on him, and it was one of his bad days. You have good Baker, bad Baker, hot or cold Baker, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, this was the day that the bad side of Baker showed up, and it cost them. And I actually want to point to a tweet that Kelcey dropped on High Low, at least, where it was about you're at the 50-yard line, and you have 2 prime starters, at least 2 two at least Pro Bowl caliber starting running backs, and you aren't trying to at least run the ball. You still have some time, and you're able to bully if you want the Packers front seven, and you're still relying on the pass a little too much. It's not like they had 10 seconds. They still had just under a minute. They could have ran a few plays, and they need a field goal. It wasn't looking for a touchdown. So, I applaud the Browns. They have been the team that's like, we're not totally out of the fight all year, but this is the year they just aren't getting things done correctly. And it's the little things that were helping them last season to get them their wild card berth and their first playoff win that they've had in their, at least in their franchise, in their renewed franchise history. It's just not there. I don't know what it is. Totally, injuries, of course, have plagued them for this later half of the year. But nonetheless, today, or at least yesterday it showed that, Cleveland just is not running things the same way as it was last year. To me, some of those elements of run heavy first, pass second seem to be wavering. I don't understand. Like, I'm getting Matt Nagy vibes from Chicago where I'm like, why are you bailing on the run? You have prime runners in both those positions. You should be leaning on that if you can, and you should if you were having a struggling QB in a game. I don't understand. You weren't needing to be that desperate to continue to throw when you just need a field goal.
Look, here's the crazy thing, right? 6 out of their losses have all been one possession or less. And I do mean like 5 points or less in those situations. So what does that tell you as a team, right? You're like, we're missing some kind of just focal piece to get us over the top. We're missing some superstar somewhere to get us over the top. And I can tell you exactly where he was. He was sitting on the sideline for the last minute and so 47 seconds of this game. And you don't just take Nick Chubb out and expect to have anybody replace him and to be sufficient. And you don't just forget that you have 3 timeouts on top of that. And you're inside. I mean, literally watching this game, DJ and I, we literally, there was a combined thought in our head when we were watching this game that what happened to the run? You have 3 timeouts. You have Dearness Johnson, who is a starting caliber running back for almost every other team in the NFL, and Nick Chubb. I don't need to say any more about Nick Chubb. And you're gonna run 3 different routes that just don't make sense with Baker, and considering he has shoulder issues. What are you doing in this case where your coaching is thinking that's a great idea? At what point do you just stop trying to outsmart yourselves and just start coaching a real game? Because this is Andy Reid, this is Cliff Kingsbury, this is the guys that I complain about all over again, week in, week out. They're just trying to outsmart themselves by outsmarting the other team, because they just end up shooting themselves in the foot every single time. And it's frustrating to watch. It really is. I have zero desire to care about the Browns, and yet I care about the Browns right now because I'm tired of sitting there watching them just blow leads. I love their offensive line. Their offensive line is fantastic, but you don't use them when you just sit there and throw three-step drops every single time. And then when I say drop, I'm not even just talking about the 3-step drop Baker takes. I'm talking about the drop when he hits his receiver's hands. There's nobody helping each other out on this team other than the offensive line and Nick Chubb. So why not use what you're good at?
I don't know. I was actually expecting this team to be better when they traded Odell because of the statistics showing that would be the case. And I'm not saying Odell is all the problems, but I remember that threshold when they traded Beckham, that everything was going to be instantly better. And that was the issue, was that we streamline the offense, we get back to what the basics that were working last year, and it's been a crapshoot. Whether it's injury based, whether it's just scheming towards that, or not doing the little things correctly, as we're saying, it hasn't worked out that way. And so this offseason, I don't know. I don't think they'll make the playoffs at this point. Really, if they would have beaten the Raiders and they would have, taken their chances and done the right thing in beating Green Bay, Bears fan and me included, then maybe this is a different conversation. But, I think this offseason, you're going to see them be sitting on the sidelines and debating okay, we have a good, well-built unit all around. We need to either adjust pieces or we need to figure out what the heck happened this year, which I think is pretty simple. Go back to the philosophies you had in 2020 and get back on the ground game first, pass second, whoever's behind center, honestly.
100%.
And Baker needs to go back to game manager Baker. No more of this superhero Baker stuff and throwing 4 interceptions. This is why if you've heard us talk about it before on High Low, and even here on this show, when DJ and I talk about Baker and game managers, and he needs to be a game manager. He needs to not be put in a position to throw 4 interceptions.
Yes.
Like that should never. Like honestly, let's be completely honest about it. He straight up should have probably thrown about 6 in that game.
Easily. And you can make a case the last one. Obviously, there was a hold on the last play as well, too. Like, no one's blind to that. There was a defensive hold that was initiated by the receiver walking into him. They're not going to call that when the receiver initiates contacts to push off and then the defensive back holds for a minute. Should have been called, probably, but they're never going to call it when the receiver instigates it like that. And it wasn't a full Superman jersey rip across. It was a tug. So, and on top of that, you shouldn't have thrown that ball in the first place. Like, I don't know. That wasn't open even without the hold. You can't throw for a flag in that situation. So, as you mentioned, it was 4, could have been 7. A couple of them weren't entirely his fault, but it was messy game all around. We'll see next year. You got the 5th-year option on Baker. It's a prime chance for him to make a statement next year and maybe bring in a veteran backup. I've been hammering this home like a Marcus Mariota type. Set up a Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill type thing. Because Baker's the type of quarterback, you put the chip on his shoulder like that, you oftentimes have seen the best of him. I mean, he won a Heisman Trophy when he was called trash, basically, after his incidents at Oklahoma. So maybe it brings out the best of him, maybe it doesn't. But it's one of those, I feel like you have to try it at this point. You can't just copy him. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. Something will have to change going into next year.
Yeah. And look, it's not like it was been a bad year. Like you are literally 24 points in 6 games. So 4 points each game away from having a completely different record here on your losses. Like that's how close they have been in these games, which I guess for Browns fans, it might be more heartbreaking. But truthfully, when I look at that as where they were 3 years ago to where they are now, I still think it's progress in a better route. I think they got too good too early last year. And this is kind of the step back we see from that. And they're going to go back forward next year once they make some changes. And whatever changes those are, I think they're going to be a decent change. But I do agree with DJ. Bringing in a vet to back up Baker, it seems like the odds-on favorite, just to give him that extra little kick in the butt that we see Baker needing to be competitive. Like he kept Kyler Murray off the field, and we know how electric Kyler Murray is, when he was in Oklahoma. So let's not say that like he is no slouch by any means when it comes to keeping guys off the field when he has a competition.
Absolutely as well too. And on top of that as well, we kind of talked. I compared him to the Rams when the Rams went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Then the next year they missed the playoffs altogether and were a travesty. There was games with Jared Goff was thrown at 62 times a game. Then the next year they kind of rechanged some things, went to a defensive heavy team, and then they made the playoffs again. And they even beat Seattle and won a playoff game, and then they got Matt Stafford and things changed. But I could see something like that where this year it's a little reckless. They make some changes in the offseason. That defense came a long way this year as well too. That is a really, really good unit overall when they're not constantly being put on the field with 3 and outs and turnovers. So we'll see. Maybe next year they even take another step forward. That's a lot of young pieces. So we'll see them next year. And before to finish out the first quarter, I guess we'll talk about the other Saturday game. What were your guys' thoughts on the Colts and Arizona game? We'll go with Kelcey first on this one, since we were on the call and most of our thoughts are already directly out there.
Oh yeah, look, I thought that was a fantastic game from top to bottom. I do think there's things that make me question the Cardinals long term, but that's more down to just it seems like they forget what they are at the end of the day. Again, we talk about the same thing with the Browns. The Cardinals are the exact same thing, except for their difference is they haven't had 6 games they've lost by 1 possession or less. They've had 3 games they've lost by 1 possession or less, something like that, where it's like they've been able to win the closer ones more often than not. And at the end of the day, just that comes down to just having guys that know how to make plays and your coach allowing them to make plays. I've seen a lot more Cliff Kingsbury just being like, all right, Kyler, go do your thing instead of hamstringing Kyler to try to do something different. And I think the Cardinals obviously losing this way is less than ideal, but they're going to figure it out. Obviously this Rodney Hudson injury is a bigger issue than a lot of people are even talking about. Everybody wants to point at Nuke, and DeAndre Hopkins and be like, oh, he's the reason why that they're losing. No, you lose a center, and I talked to DJ about this. We talked about it off air. You lose a center, and as much as people call skill positions because they're talented, you lose a center as experienced as Rodney Hudson is and as adept at calling out blitzes and things like that he sees, and you lose a lot of protection for a young quarterback like Kyler. You make him basically run for his life, and it's a bigger loss than a lot of people even look at. You could be like, oh, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, how terrible. So you have AJ Green, who's been leading your team in receiving yards. You have Christian Kirk, who led your team in receiving yards at some other point in time. I think there's aspects to this that make me worry, but at the same time, I'm not as worried about them as, let's say, the Browns or anything. And on the other side, the Colts, man, that's a hell of a fight they put out there. And to win that game on the road with down to your bare bones at times, congratulations to that.
I'm not saying that the Colts are going to win the AFC South, but they will be the wild card team you don't want to meet in the playoffs this year if you were in the AFC. I'm just being frank. They scare the hell out of me if I'm playing them. The Titans are probably wiping their brow going, thank God we got away with that easy Wentz interception earlier for that second win to sweep, because Jesus Christ, we had to meet them late in the year. We definitely would not get this W without Derrick Henry and such. They're just like I was mentioning, or I think even before the show, it's just that they've taken what the Titans have done well, and they're just maximizing that right now to me, with possibly at least a more healthy roster and at least I think a better pieces in overall. I think Carson Wentz right now is definitely playing better than Ryan Tannehill. Of course, he has JT to lean on, but that being said, I think when you have Michael Pittman out there, who is, being that reliable throw up to the guy that whenever type of player, in terms of being a receiver that what's that?
Unless it's the Buccaneers.
Unless it's the Bucks, okay. But still, that being said, they are taking that game plan and maximizing it. And plus the defense, even with, you have COVID issues right now that everyone does. But, we all knew the Colts, their strength, their bread and butter last few years has been that. And it continues to be that presence at times. So, I like what's going. I'm fearing the Colts if I'm running into them at the end of the season. I'm wondering where they're going to land. And for the Cardinals, I'm going to take what Kelcey said, essentially. Just get back to your roots. And, it looks like ever since you had Murray and Nuck come back from injury, things have just not been clicking in the same way they were. I don't know what's going down, but backsliding is not the right time to do this at this time. December football, usually, if you're sliding like this, it's a bad sign. I have some worries about the Cardinals. So the Rams probably are going to get the West, to me, is how I see it.
It definitely feels like that the Rams seem to be clicking at the right time. And I'll just kind of, the real quick thing to end out this first quarter, Carson Wentz worth the trade. I feel like that game last night, especially those final two drives, that might have made the trade worth it 100% with the Eagles, considering as great as Philip Rivers was, 40-year-old Philip Rivers is not winning that game for him if you substitute him in from last year. Jacoby Brissett's probably not winning that game. So just those last two drives alone is exactly why they brought him in for. He's had some miserable games this year, but what he did down the stretch of, if he could continue to bring that, me and Kelcey, that's the best Carson Wentz we've seen with the Colts, arguably. Yeah. If that's what you get the rest of the way, oh boy, that's gonna be a scary team, especially when they get all those players back on top of it. I mean, JT had 100 yards without Quentin Nutt, 2 Pro Bowl interior linemen, a starting interior lineman, a starting left tackle, and everything, just everything at that point. So yeah.
I and the rest of the AFC are shaking in my boots. It's time for the second quarter, ladies and gentlemen. DJ's time to shine, as I'll be passing that back along. It's DJ's best bets and some other ones that me and Kelcey will add on, because, DJ does such a damn good job of giving you the all-encompassing betting scene in terms of whatever you need to know, at least in our eyes, that you want for your Sunday matchup. So DJ, as always, take it away, man. This is your time to shine. Enlighten us with your at least your odds and whatever you may need.
Well, last week wasn't a great week for us. We look at what we had last week. Buffalo 10.5 over Carolina. Expected the Panthers to cover. Didn't expect them to fall apart and unravel, turn it over, and have no kicker minutes before kickoffs where they had to go for 2 every time. So that put a damper on that. If they had a kicker, maybe it's a little bit closer. But that one, unfortunately, did not fall our way. The Bucks 10.5 favorites over the Saints. We said the Saints should cover. Didn't expect a 9-0 shutout, but you did win money on that one. Bears as an underdog. I like them to win. That did not work out. Steelers versus Titans. I said take the over because I thought it'd be one of those where the Steelers are crappy on offense. The Titans are running with it. Then the Steelers have a third quarter blitz and score 24 points. That didn't happen. The Steelers did win, but they did not take the over. Cardinals Lions, I said take the under because I expected it to be just a really low. I expected it to be the Cardinals winning 30-10, blowing out the Lions, and then basically the Lions just not holding up their end of the deal. Turned out I was wrong. It was the exact same thing, but flip the teams. The Lions did the blowing out, and the Cardinals did not hold up their end of the deal, so you won money there. Vikings Bears, that was supposed to be a bit of a shootout, but we got absolutely none of that. That was absolutely an ugly game offensively for both teams. So last week was not our best week for winning money. So this week we're going to try and recoup for it. And even though the Bears let us down last week, we're going to go back with them today. 6.5 point underdogs at Seattle. Take the Bears to cover this one. Nick Foles is getting the start. He's been sitting well deep on the bench all season. As I watch Andy Dalton and Justin Fields all year, I expect him to go out there and start slinging darts against this depleted Seattle defense. It's not inspiring fear in anybody. And I just think it's two teams that are already looking forward to next year. But Nick Foles trying to get a contract. So look for Nick Foles to at least keep the Bears within 6.5 points against Seattle. And Chargers 10.5 over Houston. I normally hate these type of ones where you have 10+, but I think the Chargers are going to cover this one against Houston. They are probably going to be missing Austin Eckler. I think it's going to kind of fall on Justin Herbert to piece them apart. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to find his receivers. They're playing for that wild card spot in that 5-6. It is a mess right there. And with the Colts winning, that basically locks them into 5 for at least another week. And that was with the toughest part of their schedule done. Chargers, I think they are going to go all in and try and win. They're going to go all in against Houston. I think they're going to cover this one. They're going to win comfortably. And I think the defense is going to show up and make it rough for Houston. So normally those big favorites, don't really like them too much, but 10.5, I think the Chargers will go and take that one. And then Detroit, a plus 240 underdog versus Atlanta. If you want to take some money lines, this might not be a bad one. Detroit, we talked about what they did against Arizona last week. They did have that win earlier in the season against the Vikings. Atlanta's weirdly in the playoff hunt, but at the same time really fluky, and you can't trust them. As weird as that is, it's like two completely contrasting statements. But I don't know how I feel about Atlanta in this game. This feels like the type of game Atlanta comes up a little bit short and frequently, especially when they're somehow still in that playoff race down the stretch. So look for Detroit if you want to maybe just slide a few dollars here and see if you can get a nice payout. This might be one to keep a look at. And now for at least my favorite, and probably everyone else's favorite, is the over-unders as well too. First off, we're looking at the Vikings versus the Rams, 48.5 points. I'm going to take the under on this one as well. As good as the Vikings skill players are, Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, arguably the two best receivers in the game right now, going head-to-head, plus Odell. You got Dalvin Cook. Like, you got squads. And I don't even know if Dalvin Cook is playing. Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford. You got a lot of offensive players. The Vikings lead the NFL in sacks, and the Rams have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in squad. So look for the defenses to make a bit of a statement and both teams to kind of slow things down and doesn't turn into the shootout we expect. So maybe a 24-20, something like that, 21-17. For some reason, I think it's going to be a weirdly lower scoring game, an efficient offensive game, not an explosive one. So 48.5 is pretty high, so I'm going to take the under. I'm going to say it's close, but it's going to be an under. It's going to be an under. Patriots versus Bills, 43.5. Last time we had this game, it was in the storm of death, basically. And I thought it'd be take the over because both offenses would find a way regardless. Did not expect a Mac Jones 3-piece. And by that, I mean literally 3 pass attempts. And then the Bills to completely unravel offensively. This time, the Bills, their season's not on the line, but their season's almost on the line on this one. If you win, you actually are in position to take the AFC East. If you lose, you could potentially find yourself on the outside looking in of the wild card, the very congested bottom of the wild card, because they had none of the tiebreakers, really. So I look for the Bills to come out firing and the Patriots to have to try and match that. And look for the 43.5. Look for that to take the over. Not by much, maybe a 27-20, something like that. But I do think we could take the over in this one. And then Chiefs versus Steelers at 45.5. I'm taking the under on this one. The Steelers' offense for long periods of times is very, very mediocre. And while the Chiefs could put it up with the best of them, they really don't until they have to. They almost seem content winning 19-14. Their offense gets really conservative when they have a lead. So look for this one to be 20-10, 24-14, something along those, 24-10, something like that. Relatively close game. I think that the Chiefs will hold on and keep them at bay. I just don't think we'll see the offensive explosion we're used to. And I think both teams are just really conservative offensively down the stretch of this one. So I'm taking the under there, which is weird. You'd never want to take under with the Chiefs usually, but I'm still leaning towards this one, and that's what I'm looking at in betting. I think it should be a pretty decent week to bounce back after last week with some rough spots.
Okay, so first of all, I got to go back to your Detroit pick because I'm the one, that idiot that usually picks Detroit all the time. And I got to say, I am loving the pick for Detroit and loving going with Detroit this week. That is my number one on the list of just like, take it against Atlanta because it's 100% going to be a thing. And also on top of that, it's also got a an over-under, I believe. Let me go back to it again. 41 or 42.5. I would not be shocked to see this one be like a 32-28 game type of situation where they are just lighting it up. So I'd take the over on this one as well. So that's my thought on that game, first of all. But then on top of that, I'm also looking at this Jets and Jacksonville game at 41 with the over-under. And I got to take the over again. This is a situation where I'm taking the over on this one because a team where they finally get to use James Robinson, so they're no longer handcuffed, and they have Trevor Lawrence, who can still put up 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going to give you a pick at least. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side, Zach Wilson and this entire Jets squad can put up points as well. Again, this one doesn't have to be much. This one could be a 21-23 type of game, and you're over, and you hit the over/under. So you hit the over on the over/under. So I don't see why not. So those are the ones I'm looking at for sure.
One thing with the Lions too is DeAndre Swift has come alive in some of these games recently as well too. And I think Atlanta's run defense not exactly something that scares you, and that makes Jared Goff's life. We know how good he is off play action. It's when you take away play action where you get scared with him a little bit. So I think that opens up. And I had the Jaguars and the Jets. That was one of them I had written down. But I changed my mind because those Jets COVID issues kind of make me nervous. Like, fair. Even if they get the option, Zach Wilson doesn't have guys like Elijah Moore to throw to. And I was like, can they actually score? I know the Jaguars don't have a defense right now with Josh Allen and those guys. Like, that one just scares me because I don't know what's going on with the COVID thing. But I agree with you, with all things considered equal. James Robinson, Trevor Lawrence, they should get you 24. Zach Wilson is that defense should get you 21, like you said. But
I mean, hell, if he gets you 18, if Jacksonville gets you 24, you're good. You got your points. So
I'm nervous if either one's going to get to 20 with all the injuries. I fear the chance of this being the Blunder Bowl, especially with now that you're down to backups in a lot of spots.
That's my angle on this whole thing. I have it as under because of incompetence. That's how I'm just saying right now. I can see both just from the seasons they both had with these two rookie quarterbacks that you're going to see a few picks go the way, and it'll just slow this game down to a crawl. And it'll be something like a 17-10 or so. Well, not even 17. Yeah, no, it'd be like a 17-10 contest or something like that. Maybe 17-14 to where it just sneaks under as a low score game. And then this is more pick based, but I do pick the Jags to cover in this game, is my opinion, just based on, as we're talking the Jets with so many COVID issue related items. I just feel like it's going to switch back that way. But that's my angle, which is what DJ's emphasizing. I just see it as these are two teams just need to get to the end of the season, and this might go their usual game, unfortunate game routes that they have in this year. Rookie pains, growing pains for these two is how I look at it.
That being said, it's going to be a 30-7 blowout or something like that as well. So it's still going to miss the over, but it's going to be one team's going to somehow establish itself as the king of the hobbits, if you will, the king of the cellar.
That's fair.
Isengard.
And yeah, those are the kind of ones I was looking at. My thought is, what are your guys' thoughts? I had Chiefs and Steelers as an under. The Chiefs alone are almost good for like 30 points, it feels like. And against the Steelers, their defense is good, but it's not nearly as good as it usually is. It's basically TJ Watt, save us or nothing. Do you think maybe I'm a little bit reckless taking the under there, or do you guys think that the under makes sense?
I think it makes sense in this one. I do. I think what we've seen from the Chiefs this season is just doing enough to win the game, not doing overly exuberant things to win the game. Like I don't feel like I've felt like the Chiefs of old. Now, if this was last year's Chiefs, I'm like, no, this is going to be an over for sure. Like putting up 40 just because they want to, type of a situation. This year, it feels like they're kind of just doing enough, and they're going to do just enough to beat the Steelers, which is not, you don't have to do a whole lot. It seems like you get to 18 first, and you're going to beat the Steelers. So I feel like that's kind of where I'm at with this one. Like you get to 21, you feel pretty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kelcey's defense is what I think keeps it an under. I mean, this is one of the best units that Andy Reid has had, and it's shown up at least ever since that rough 3-4 start. I think it's going to harass the Steelers all day is what's going to happen. And then, as Kelcey's saying, you don't need to do too much. You can just kind of get to that point and kind of get the necessary, needed, required points just to win. Because, I mean, I think if you harass Big Ben and company, you're able to keep them off their toes. That secondary has been surprisingly good this year. And you're going to have Chase Claypool come up and be the number one guy. I think that's going to deter things. I think that's what keeps it as an under is just Kelcey's defense has been pretty impressive this year. Steve Spagnuolo, got to give him props for how this unit's played. It's going to keep it an under if I were to make it that prediction because of that.
Yeah. No, I'm not totally sold on it not going over, but to be honest, I'm feeling more 70-30. It's going to stay under, to be frank.
Definitely agree on that one.
So, yeah. But that'll do it for the first half. We're going to head into halftime, guys. We're going to take a short little break. We'll be back with you guys for quarter number 3, which means your fantasy quarter, which means maybe you have some money on the line because you're in the playoffs or the championship game. So we'll be back with that in just one moment, guys. And as always, we appreciate you tuning in.
Hey, everybody. Quarter number 3 is here. Your fantasy starts and sits for week 16. Zach Common alongside Kelcey and DJ of High Low Sports for our 4th and 4 week 16 edition, part of the Belly Up Sports pregame lineup of shows. Let's get into this, guys. So fantasy, this is kind of playoff era. I can't relate fully because all my leagues have been knocked out of at this point, or I'm in a lower bowl. As in our sleeper league, I'm in the toilet bowl. So I'm just kind of I'm going. But I do have some options on my end. I'll kick things off for fantasy. So first off, I got 2 starts this week, or at least starting options, I would say. Number one, if you're looking for Bucs players, Antonio Brown's supposed to be back this week. I'd say go with Antonio Brown. That receiving core is decimated after last week's incidents with Will Evans and Chris Godwin, either going out for the year or being sidelined. So definitely look for Brown to come back after his suspension and be a potential number 1 target for Brady to lean on, because one thing Brady needs is those high flying receiving targets. Brown's going to be one of those options for you, or just look at other options in the Tampa Bay receiving core that maybe are filling in as well, that you can maybe get into as well. Speaking of just anything in the passing attack, really anyone on the Bengals, if you have T. Higgins, if you have Tyler Boyd, and especially if you have Jamar Chase, you're already starting already, but like if you're for some reason still on the fence with T. Higgins possibly, or even Ozuma, if you're looking for a tight end, look at the Bengals. I know that DJ and Kelcey and I have talked about this on how decimated the Ravens secondary is. Seriously, guys, like anyone that's a passing attack option for the Bengals that you think is going to get reasonable targets or reasonable, at least on-field snaps, go for those guys, pick them up. I think that it's going to be another game similar to what it was early this year, where the Bengals are going to just rout the Ravens, in my opinion, because of how decimated they are on that side of the ball. Injuries catch up eventually. It's just the end of the year. They just have finally caught all the way up. As for a sit option, personally, Terry McLaurin is going to be my sit option here. I know that a lot of people need him as a starting option, but look, the Washington football team, they have lost a few targets to injury this year, at least over the recent weeks. And I think Cowboys are going to key in on McLaurin. You're going to see him locked down. The Cowboys have not really been allowing as many explosive touchdowns in recent weeks. So I would think that McLaurin is going to be having less of a chance to get a high profile fantasy day. That's why I'm saying stay away from him, because you're going to have him being blanketed throughout the day. And 2 of my sleepers are going to be LA Chargers players, mainly because Mike Williams is out with COVID issues. Look for Joshua Palmer or Jared Cook. I think those are going to be one of your two options that you're going to see Herbert lean on besides Keenan Allen. Palmer has been a good number 3 option for the Chargers. This might be his day, since with him being his rookie year, he's going to get his chance to get his number 2 option filled in and maybe shine. Mike Williams, I know, is in the contract year. Not saying that that's going to deter things, but for Palmer, he's had a pretty solid receiver 3 season. Watch him get a receiver 2 workload today, because he gets those chance to have that target. That's my fantasy lineups, if you will. I saw. I actually want to hear Kelcey here. I saw the McLaurin one. You had a little look at, so I'm curious. I'm just curious.
You said, and I quote, that the Cowboys haven't given up as many explosive plays as of late. Let me just go ahead and say it's not through lack of trying, because they've tried to give up some explosive plays. It's just been stupid penalties are in the backside. Look, Trayvon Diggs is still I don't trust him type of position. Anthony Brown is going back to being his average self, which is not terrible, but I worry about anybody against an average Anthony Brown. And Trayvon Diggs, obviously, he's a feast or famine type of guy. He either gets a pick or he gives up 200 yards. Take your pick. It doesn't seem to be anything in between as of late. And which I feel bad, because him and his son had that fantastic, segment during halftime last night. And, it's I worry about anybody going against that secondary, just because Trayvon Diggs is so prone to give up long shots. And that just worries me. But as far as my fantasy starts and sits go, I got to say, I do love your Jared Cook pick. He was my starter for the tight ends this week, for sure. My sit, though, for the tight ends, I'm looking at Hunter Henry. And that's just, you're going against this Bills team. And I just don't see there being a whole lot of room to work against this Bills team. I've been proven wrong before by this Bills team, so that's like a 60-40. He's sit him. If you have to choose between him or Jared Cook, I'm taking Jared Cook. That's how that's going to work. Let's just put it that way. Now, receiver-wise, the reason why I talked about the Lions and Falcons game earlier in the betting period is I have 2 receivers in my fantasy situation that I would love to play. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. And then I'm also looking on the other side at Russell Gage. Both of these receivers, I mean, they can absolutely light it up, and they're going to be a big piece of it. But don't forget Olamide Zaccheaus. He's a second string, third string receiver for the Falcons. Has been getting random burn in the most weird weeks, and it seems like it's his time again. Like, he goes usually 2 to 3 weeks without having any sort of appearance, and then a 100-yard game. So this could be his situation where he gets a 100-yard, 2-touchdown type of situation. So if you don't have Gage available, maybe look at Zacchaeus as a possible streaming pickup there. And then as far as quarterback goes, I'm not liking Russell Wilson's matchup this week at all, which seems blasphemous to be like, oh, don't start Russell Wilson. But yeah, I probably don't start Russell Wilson. If I have to choose between him or like Kirk Cousins, I'm taking Kirk Cousins, truthfully, which again seems blasphemous for how much I berate Kirk Cousins. But here we are, week 16 of this NFL season. COVID is striking back, and I'm choosing Kirk Cousins over Russell Wilson. Who would have thought?
You're just getting tested. Like this week, you really are getting tested with all the COVID things. You have to be on your toes more than ever if you're playing fantasy. It's like that's the scary part if you're talking not like the serious nature of this. It's just like, oh my God, who's out now? Like the sleeper updates are crazy, is how I've seen it.
Absolutely. My list is a little bit shorter because, as you mentioned, it's that time of the year where you play your best players regardless most of the time. Right. Like if you have Jamar Chase, you mentioned, you're playing in no matter what. If you have Justin, it doesn't matter who it is, you're playing your basically first 6 round picks or so, almost guaranteed. Like they're going to play in some sort of way. So I'm looking at basically guys you could maybe substitute in a flex, or if you have a random guy out with COVID or something along those lines. So first one I'll look at is this is going to be blasphemous to say it goes against me and Kelcey's entire creed throughout the season, but I'm taking Devin Singletary, a Bills running back. And I think it's because he's going to get involved in the passing game. Because you were running out of targets quick, fast, and in a hurry. J.C. Jackson's going to be on Stephon Diggs, or they're going to double team him in the classic Bill Belichick way, and then put J.C. Jackson on the number 2 receiver, which means you're out 2 receivers even in that way. So somebody's got to get involved. We saw Jonathan Taylor last week find some creases in this defense. We saw Nyheim Hines catch a touchdown, quote unquote, catch a touchdown on this defense. I look for Devin Singletary. He's a very good pass receiver. He's a good running back. In his short spurts, he's looked effective. I look for him to get involved. Maybe 3 to 4 catches for like 30 to 40 yards, just some chain moving ones, which that's about 8 points in a PPR league, not including rushing. So look for Devin Singletary if you're dying for a flex, or maybe your running back is out or something like that too. Maybe he's the guy you could slide in there. At this point, if you don't have your guys already locked in, it's kind of panic mode anyway. So this could be a good panic button for you if you're in the playoff stretch. And if you're a quarterback and you're like me, who always carried only one quarterback, so when something happens to him, you're in a bind. Nick Foles, I said it earlier, I think this could be a game where he puts a good enough fantasy points. I'm not saying he's giving you 30, but he could give you 18. I could like a Jimmy Garoppolo when he's not throwing picks type of game. Maybe a couple hundred.
30.
Was that?
He's about to give you 30.
Probably if he goes full big Nick like he was Saint Nick himself on Christmas weekend, then that's a whole different thing. But I can see him hitting you about 20 to 21 points. And Seattle's defense isn't exactly anything to terrify over. I mean, we've got there's no Jamal Adams. Bobby Wagner is a tackling machine, but the pass rush is limited, and he's been itching to play all season. As I mentioned earlier, look for him to throw some darts maybe to try and get himself another contract, or as we saw him trying to get on Indianapolis by every sort of mean possible before the season. Maybe this is kind of his way of trying to do something like that as well, because he wants to play. He's probably been destroying that practice squad all season. So Nick Foles is a guy I can see. If you're really in a bind for quarterback, why not give it a shot just for this week? Maybe he gets you to the next round. And then for sits, I am sitting all New York Giants players. I do not know how I until I see Jake Fromm start throwing darts. I'm not playing Galladay, not playing Slayton. I'm not playing Evan Ingram. I'm not playing Saquon. Not playing any of them. I'm just not risking it until I know what I'm getting with Jake Fromm. I barely like playing him with Daniel Jones, let alone Mike Glennon, let alone Jake Fromm in his first career start. So
I take a different option. I'm starting Booker without a doubt in my mind.
I'm looking at a 10-man box, and they're gonna be like, all right, Jake Fromm, you got to beat us now. But if I'm just avoiding them because I don't feel.
I'm just picking the one guy who's going to give me at least 6 fantasy points on that team, and that's going to be Booker probably.
I'm avoiding the Giants at all costs. That is what I'm looking at. And then for other sits, I'm avoiding all the Ravens offense players besides Mark Andrews, because Josh Johnson, I don't know. We saw him play a little bit with the Jets earlier this season, had a really good kind of garbage time Philip defense fantasy stat sheet down the stretch. I don't know how much that's going to work here in this division rivalry game against the Bengals as well too. Hollywood Brown's a good receiver, but he's limited. I feel like him and Lamar make each other better than he does with other players. Mark Andrews is obviously Mark Andrews. He's always the right option, so he doesn't count. How much are they going to run the same offense? Because Tyler Huntley was kind of had this offense down to a T. He'd been there. Josh Johnson, probably not quite as much. So I'm just kind of avoiding those Ravens skill position players if I can, besides Mark Andrews as well too. So I'm not even giving you players. I'm going into entire cores of offensive players that I'm avoiding for this week if you can.
Fair enough. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's solid choice. I want to touch back on the Devin Singletary one just because we've had good laughs on here. I mean, I know Kelcey's with Matt Breida. He's never going to forgive me for that suggestion ever. So when you bring up another Bills running back, I'm going, Oh God, here we go again. Here,
This is
and
gonna
not
be
with
the
you.
one week.
That was me last time, but like just the fact we brought it up in here, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, here we go.
This is the one week that you could see the Bills just having an absolutely outstanding run game, and it meaning absolutely nothing in the greater scheme of the Bills' run game history. But like, it's going to be Devin Singletary for 122 touchdowns, 40 yards receiving, and a touchdown somehow receiving, and he's going to be like, have a fantastic game, and then you're never going to see him again for the rest. Like for the rest of the eternity, you'll never see that type of production again.
He'll be
Sean
like Jonas
McDermott's
Gray
such
was
a
for the
flavor of the
Patriots
week.
back in like 2013 or whatever it was. 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, never plays it down again.
It's miserable.
It's just the flavor of the week out there in Orchard Park. That's all.
And
it
the
is.
flavor
Although,
is never run the ball. It's
Yep.
always Josh Allen run the ball. It's never a running back run the ball.
Their season's on the line, so you might have to try something different, honestly. I mean, if you lose, you're in that mess deep and you don't have a lot of tiebreakers. If you win, you might have the AFC East. So we'll see. Maybe they try something different today if they're smart, considering what they're missing and what you're going against. Which means they're not going to do any of this, but in theory, it makes sense.
Jesus Christ. Well, we'll see, man. I mean, hey,
Awesome.
you know, they definitely hopefully they've learned their lesson from last time where it's like, look, we could have leaned on run the ball even with that crazy storm. New England won with 3 catches. So, and the division's still open because of that loss to the Colts. Anything's possible. So maybe we just have to beat them at their own game. We'll find out today. That should be one of the marquee matchups today anyway. I think that's going to be a really good contest as well. We got 3, by the way, coming up now as we are entering the 4th quarter here. Our primetime pick'ems presented by Colorcast. Most of these games will be color casted today. I'm still on the fence about doing one today. Just depends on my schedule. I think I know I will do one though, but it just isn't on this marquee because there are better games for the one I could be doing, which would be Chicago and Seattle. I don't want to be talking about that depressing fest, so I am sticking away from it is how I'm doing it. Anyway, though, Kelcey, which one of the docket you want to talk about first? We got, of course, 3. So
let's start with the clean sweep ones that we have. So we'll start with Baltimore versus Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's just go through the standings real fast because this is worth talking about. Because first of all, I had the best week last week, so boo boo, ha 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 ha. I don't suck completely. I'm still there, by the way. But Zach, sir, finally tying the football guy.
I'm just glad that we're starting to hopefully get back into the order of things. But I mean, hey, as you've said, Hector is the football guy. It's not just American football, it's also football. So, he's been having a run. It doesn't mean it's over because I have to still, me or DJ really. Hey, Kelcey, who knows? Maybe you rally ahead here. You are only close. So
everybody would need to go 4 and whatever this week and 4-11, and I'd have to go 11-4 to have a chance.
I'm throwing in the towel. It's up to you. I have given up.
Looking at this, I don't have a chance to.
Yeah, never mind. So as you can see, everyone's picked the Bengals. We've mentioned a plethora of reasons as to why. Primarily, the Ravens. Look, they just can't get out of their way with terms of injury or COVID-ravaged rosters, and there's both sides of the ball right now. The Bengals have been able to weather the storm. They've had close losses, and they've kept up in pace with the AFC North. I think they sweep I think all of us here, we've already seen, they sweep the Ravens. They get possession to start of the lead in the AFC North, and I think this opens and is the final gateway to them winning the division for this year, is just getting past this hump of getting past Baltimore, getting the sweep. And it's because they have the healthiest roster right now, or arguably out of all 4 teams in the AFC North at this time.
They didn't win the AFC North. They survived the AFC North.
Yes.
That is how it is. They survived with the most cats in the jungle, if you will. So I think they're going to escape this one as well, too. And if the Ravens somehow win this one and then continue on and win the North, John Harbaugh's coach of the year. With everything they've gone through and the ability to stay in every game, regardless of who's out there, Harbaugh would be coach of the year. And he might even have a case otherwise. But yeah, the Bengals too healthy. Joe Burrow said it best. There's not a whole lot to do in the Cincinnati, so everyone's able to stay out of COVID issues. So give me Joe Burrow and the Bengals to win this.
Oh, that quote killed me this week. There's stuff to do in Cincinnati, man. That one hurt. I got to go back to Cincinnati. It's actually fun. To me, it's a fun town. I don't know about you guys. I like the Queen City.
It's okay.
It's not bad. Look, I mean, it's if you ask Clevelanders, they're going to say it's Kentucky. And it's just Ohio adjacent. It just happens to be just on the wrong side of the line.
I've heard that too.
But yeah, I don't mind Cincinnati whatsoever. I had a good time there a few times I've been there. Got to watch Justin Herbert throw the ball all over the park. That was also fun. But I look at this game. This is just 100% right. Everybody's right. Like they're surviving the AFC North. You're going up against a Ravens team with a third string quarterback who, by the way, was slated to start for a completely different team earlier this season, and now he's going to be starting for you. So obviously that tells me he doesn't understand your offense, because your offense is different than every other offense, because you're built around Lamar and you're built around what he can do well. And you can slim that down for somebody like Tyler Huntley and make it work, because Tyler Huntley has a lot of the same skill set, not the same level, but it's not going to work today. Your secondary is still depleted. It would have to take a Devontae Freeman carrying the Atlanta Falcons to a Super Bowl type of a play from Devontae Freeman, and Mark Andrews absolutely lighting it up for whatever amount of yards in this game to even have a chance. And I just don't see it happening. This Cincinnati team, while we talk about they just survived, they can explode with the best of them. This receiving core is absolutely insane. Joe Mixon's still a top 5 running back. Joe Burrow has had a fantastic season as well, coming off that ACL injury. Oh, yeah. So I don't see why the Cincinnati Bengals team can't walk away with this division starting today, but I think they have a great opportunity, in this one for sure.
I'll add on that if Josh Johnson pulls off this win, not only will you have Ravens fans losing it and how well John Harbaugh has coached this roster, but you'll have the XFL community going nuts just because of the fact that he's getting his start and getting a win and keeping this team alive. It's like I praise the guys because they follow pretty much any player. I mean, Taylor Heineke is a legend now to us too, but Josh Johnson, any place he's gotten to play, it's been instant like, oh my God, he's in the game. Or like PJ Walker's in the game as well. So I'm just saying, like, he wins today, it's going to be nonstop. My goodness, man, the XFL legend continues, and I'll just be having a nice chuckle in the back, going, yeah, that's my guy. So I do same all around though. Like we said, it's just injuries and DJ's better quoting of surviving has prevailed. I think it will prevail. Game's not even played yet, but Jesus, I mean, there's so many things stacked against the Ravens in this one, and they're going to Cincinnati. Or are they? Wait, yeah, they're going to Cincinnati for this one, right? Or was that? Or am I misinterpreting your home away again there, Kelcey, like I did earlier this year?
Man, I don't know. I don't even know right now.
Cincinnati, Baltimore, Maryland, it don't matter.
They don't matter.
It's all within 3 hours of each other. Let's be honest about it.
Exactly, don't matter.
All right, guys, let's get into a little more of the weeds on these picks. Got 2 more games on the slate.
A little more of the weeds, where we go another sweep for the
weeds.
DJ and I will actually be on the call for this one at the Sunday night primetime game. But yeah, this is the Cowboys versus the Washington football team with another sweep of the nation.
Yes, lovely.
We saw what happened last time, and it's probably just going to be the same thing as well too. I think Dallas is just a well-oiled machine of enough to win. Defensively, they do enough to stop. Offensively, they do enough to get in the end zone. The Washington, I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they have the horses. Even if Terry McLaurin goes ballistic, I still think they'll be trailing a lot of the way. I don't think they'll be able to stop the Cowboys offense consistently. And I don't think they'll be able to get anyone on the defense. So it's hard to pick against the Cowboys in this game for me.
Yeah. By the way, Cincinnati was playing at home versus Baltimore.
Okay. No, not crazy.
So it's still the same city, just 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
This is literally the AFC North. They're all the same cities, just like in different parts of the Northeast.
I'm just picturing where we were at in Cleveland a few weeks back and going, yes, anywhere else in the AFC North. This is what I expect. I don't need to go to Baltimore anymore. I forget about ever going vacationing there. Anyway, to focus on the game at hand, I see, to me, Cowboys in Washington, this is like, in my eyes, I'm going to equate this to a Power 5 school tune-up game is how I'm looking at it. I need to see the Cowboys not look just good enough to win a game. I need to see a team that is right now supposed to be one of the top of the class in the NFC at this moment, which they haven't really looked that way. I mean, even Dak Prescott in recent weeks has commented that we're getting things done, but we aren't hitting on all cylinders. I want to see a team that's firing on all cylinders and is proving that they should be a force come playoff time. Because right now, I think that obviously because the NFC East is weaker at this time, I mean, let's be frank, it kind of is. They are getting ahead of things right now. It's just that I want to see them kind of have that, oh my gosh, we're all the way back. Injuries aren't an issue or anything. And this offense is clicking at the right time. I haven't gotten that game in a while. It's about playoff time. They're pretty much in as the representation of the East. Question is, are they going to be a legit contender going into the playoffs come in a few weeks? That's where I want to look at this game. That's how I got it, because Washington's a little bit depleted. Dallas is overall just a better talented roster. Can I see that on display in a better coached game as well?
Is there a weaker 10 loss team than the Dallas Cowboys?
A weaker 10-win team? That's tough. Maybe Tennessee, but I think that makes it. That's really
A weaker playoff team this early.
Arizona's shown it in recent weeks to me, so that's also another.
Well, here you go. They're the weakest team that's clinched a playoff spot so far, for sure. I mean, you look at this Dallas team, and they've kind of had a cakewalk. Like, I hate to say it, but they might cakewalk their way to a 13-win season, and I'm still going to sit here and be like, you're going to get blown out in the first round. And maybe that's the biasness because I'm a Cowboys fan. I've just known nothing but losing and disappointment. But history is there for a reason. History tells us our stories. History tends to repeat itself. And this is a case where if history's taught me anything, it's that, it's going to look good for the regular season. It's not going to be an easy game against Washington, and they're not going to blow out Washington. If they do, I'd be shocked. This game never ends up a blowout, but truthfully, I'm just looking at it, and I just don't see any way that Dallas walks away with this one comfortably. But I do think they win it just because they are more, at the end of the day, they have more weapons. But it's just not going to be a comfortable game, especially not for any Cowboys fans out there. You're going to be pretty miserable.
So here's my thing. The Cowboys right now be facing Minnesota. If the playoffs started today, would you be comfortable with them facing Minnesota?
Oh, God, no. Justin Jefferson's about to go off for 300.
Trayvon Diggs, but I had 10 plus interceptions this year.
Oh, he'll still get a pick. No, don't get me wrong. Kirk Cousins will still throw him one. He'll just give up 300 yards receiving.
Yes. The most yards given, but we still got the picks. Got to remember that stat. You can't forget that stat. It's very important when we talk about it. You're right. Yeah. That's the thing though. Like I agree. Like I haven't seen a team that doesn't give me confidence. I guess confidence maybe that's why I listed as like time for a tune-up going into the playoffs, because they're pretty much in. This is all about seeding at this point. They're just trying to keep up with the Green Bay Packers. So, can they do that? And can they show me that I'm not going to be scared of them getting a first or second round out?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a big question. But that'll take us to our game that we're not sweeping this one, right? This one's game. And we got about 2 minutes left. So it's real quick, guys. Break down this Miami-New Orleans game. Obviously, Zach, you and DJ both went New Orleans. I'm going with Miami, but I got to know your guys' take because Ian Book's starting for New Orleans. I got to know why you guys are going New Orleans on this one.
I'll go quick on this one, Zach. I'll get man out of the way. They're going to get more takeaways, and Alvin Kamara will equalize factors just enough. Miami's pass defense electric. Alvin Kamara be able to find some holes in the run defense to make Ian Book's job a little bit easier, and he's not Taysom Hill. So I think they're actually going to run a normal offense. So give me the Saints in the ugliest game of the year.
A lot of DJ's points are what I reflect, but also look at the previous schedule. Yes, the Miami Dolphins are 7-7, and it is right now an under the radar winning streak, but there's reasons why. Weak competition has bloated that winning streak. This is the best defense that the Miami Dolphins have played since week 4, and that's the Colts that I'm referencing, by the way. I think that Tua is going to get a little bit exposed because the Saints are an offensive juggernaut, and Sean Payton is, to me, a better coach, and it will get these guys well coached enough to where they will get their 8th win of the year. That's why I'm saying, even with Ian Book, that defense is going to expose Tua a little bit because Tua has been playing some weaker competition during this 6-game win streak.
Fair enough. All right. I mean, I'd say the Bills' defense was a lot better than anything they face, along with the Bucks and But hey, what do I know? Yeah. Anyways, no. I think Tua actually has some magic left in his feet, and they're finally starting to hit their stride. So I think this is a situation where there's just too many injuries for New Orleans, though, and that's why I'm going. You can't lose your quarterback and then lose your backup quarterback, then lose your third string quarterback, and go to Ian Book and expect to have a win. I love Ian Book. I think he's going to do fantastic. I just don't think this is the week for him.
Does anyone think either team cracks 20 points? Because I'm thinking they both under 20 points on the day.
Oh, this is going to be a 12-18 game. Like,
look at a 12-11. I think somehow it's going to be the dumbest score we've ever seen, or like 15-16 or something weird.
Yeah,
it's already happened this year for the Saints. I think you guys are right. This is going to be some weird low score clunker that you'll have either Dolphins fans or Saints fans pull their hair out because like, how do we score this little? Like a 9-6 affair. I could totally see that happening. Just a field goal contest. We just get just enough.
Yeah. But that'll do it for us today, guys. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. It's always been fun times when we get together like this. If you guys haven't checked us out, check out Zach at Grid Gallery Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I believe it's the same thing.
Yep.
On Facebook at Gridiron Gallery. DJ and I at High Low Sports at high_sports on Twitter and at High Low Sports on Instagram. But as always, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. And we will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of the Belly Up Sports pregame show starting now.